We talked about the presidential election. What would a candidate have to do in order for you to say, you know what, that is the type of thinking on surveillance or on individual freedom and liberty from surveillance that I could get behind? What would they have to do?
I mean, again, this sort of political direction gets beyond my expertise, so I don't like to talk too much about that. But you know, you brought up an interesting point there about Russia that I think is actually important to contextualize. There's a lot of fair criticism, reasonable criticism that's like, hey, this guy's Russia. It's important to understand that I never attended in Russia. Originally, I was hoping to get to Iceland. After that, Latin America, when Iceland fell through. But the State Department canceled my passport tracking in Russia when I was initially on leave, as soon as they heard I was in the air. And despite the fact that I've asked several times, they've refused to reinstate it, which is quite interesting. The United States, of course, criticizes Russia. At the same time, they won't let me leave. But be that as it may, there's a deeper point here, a philosophical point here, about hypocrisy. Is it hypocritical to be somewhere else and not be concerned, or as concerned with the point here, about
that word,
hypocrisy?
That word right there is the word
hypocritical.
I couldn't really say.
To be somewhere else and not be concerned, or as concerned with that locality, as you are with your home. And I would argue that it's not. I owe my first duty, my first allegiance, my first loyalty to fixing my country before I try to solve the problems of the rest of the world. Right? We've got to get our house in order first. First loyalty to fixing my country before I try to solve the problems of the rest of the world. Right? We've got to get our house in order first. First loyalty to fixing my country before I try to solve the problems of the rest of the world. Right? We've got to get our house in order first. That's not to say that I haven't criticized the policies of the Russian government, which I think in many cases are clearly indefensible, particularly when it comes to how they reach into the internet, how they reach into private lives, in ways that are not okay in Russia, they're not okay in the United States, and they're not okay anywhere. And this is something that I expect to continue, but the thing that I hope for the most, the thing that I care about the most, is let's set the standard in the United States that it has embodied traditionally, that is, we are the example for the rest of the world to emulate. We don't want people to hold in the United States that it has embodied traditionally, that is, we are the example for the rest of the world to emulate. The standard in the United States that it has embodied traditionally, that is, we are the example for the rest of the world to emulate. Set the standard in the United States that it has embodied traditionally, that is, we are the example for the rest of the world to emulate. We don't want people.
Now, did you understand, overstand, to understand, to get exactly what he said? If not, I'll let him say it again.
In the United States that it has embodied traditionally, that is, we are the example for the rest of the world to emulate. We don't want people to hold us up as an example, as in today and recently this week, in this Apple versus FBI case, where Apple, by the way, just yesterday, as an example, as in today and recently this week, in this Apple versus FBI case, where Apple, by the way, just yesterday had a call with the press where they said no country in the world has asked us to provide the authorities that the FBI is doing today. We don't want Russia or China or North Korea or Iran or France or Germany or Brazil or any other country in the world to hold us up as an example for why we should be narrowing the boundaries of liberty around the world rather than expanding. As an example for why we should be narrowing the boundaries of liberty around the world rather than expanding. Hold us up as an example for why we should be narrowing the boundaries of liberty around rather than expanding.
Okay.
To hold us up as an example for why we should be narrowing the boundaries of liberty around the world rather than expanding. To hold us up as an example for why we should be narrowing the boundaries of liberty around the world rather than expanding.
Sadly, so that's another way of saying you definitely won't be voting in this election. Okay. How should children, what are the texts that they should read, or what are the practices that are good that would give them an independent, critical, ability to kind of move into a world which is both nationalistic in a good sense. You're an American, and you seem to be still proud of being an American, and there's something there worth preserving. But there, so we can be nationalists but not statists. Where do we go on the internet? Where should we be asking our children to spend some time?
I think it's less important to go to specific texts as to demonstrate how specific texts are written. If I were a parent trying to help my child understand the internet, the key exercise that I would do is I would go look at cases that are super partisan today, right? Extraordinarily charged. And I would get two radically different rewritings of the same story, and I'd make them read both. And I do this on a number of different things to show, because this is something that a lot of older people fall prey to who aren't so familiar with the internet. They just get their news from their single landing page portal or whatever. And also young people who get super filter bubbled because they sort of opt into communities that create sort of a groupthink where it's always people who are agreeing with what they say, which was not available in the same way 20 years ago on the internet and 10 years ago on the internet, really, where there weren't walls that were quite so high separating communities. And the idea here is to show that the truth lies spread across the abundance of sources. The beauty of the internet is that you no longer have to rely on a single source. You no longer are vulnerable to the broadcast that is, this is sort of the voice of truth, this is the voice of facts. But it's important to understand that the sources that you prefer can still be wrong, even if they've got the right principles, the right ideas, the right values. Getting the facts right matters more than anything else.
So this, you're talking about the internet really as the fulfillment of the Enlightenment.
The right ideas, the right values. Getting the facts right matters more than anything else.
So this, you're talking about the...
even if they've got the right principles, the right ideas, the right values, getting the facts right matters more than anything else.
So this, you're talking...
even if they've got the right principles, the right ideas, the right values, getting the facts right matters more than anything else.
So this, you're...
wrong. Even if they've got the right principles, the right ideas, the right values, getting the facts right matters more than anything else.
So this,
And that's what the truth is. When the truth points at the facts of the act really happened as it happened, and it showed overwhelming without a shadow of doubt. Like me, for instance, having on audio tape 2 paramedics stopping my ambulance from arriving at the emergency room. Meaning, I called 911 for an emergency that I was having, and because of my complaining about the verbal abuse that I was getting prior to this physical abuse that I got from 2 paramedics when they put my life in danger. When I was reporting the verbal I was getting prior to this violation of all type of rights, when these 2 paramedics decided to stop my medical attention, when the world knows that 911 is a number that was broken down from 10 numbers to just 3 because of an emergency. Because when you're in an emergency, to think of 10 numbers will be way harder. It'd be way easier to think of just 3. Because in that emergency, things get hard fast. And your mind get weak and it don't last. So 3 numbers can save your ass. And I called those 3. And I had 2 paramedics stop my ambulance, threatening me with bodily harm and incarceration. And I have all of it on tape. When I showed that I had all of this on tape, after 5 months, when the mayor found out, the mayor felt like Houston, Texas wasn't going to be that place where they would get a black eye on their face for me being a handicapped, darker melanated man in an ambulance where there is no stopping going to the emergency room. People die every second of the day not getting to the hospital in time. My ambulance was stopped in real life saving time. And if I would have died from cardiac arrest, because inside of this ambulance, after it stopped, I argued with the paramedics to the point where they had to tell me to calm down more than 3 times, to the point where they realized how bad that was. So I say to you, people die every day for not getting to the hospital in time. If I would have died from cardiac arrest on the side of the road, March the 5th, 2013, would these paramedics told the truth that they stopped that ambulance? No, they would not have told the truth. I would have been a statistic. I'd have been like everybody else that died trying to get to the hospital for the emergency that they was having. And once the FBI, Investigating Internal Affairs, and everyone got a grip of this, I was treated like I was crazy about all of this. So all I can say to you is I know how bad our government, and I know how bad the people politically that was put in a place for to see that the people are treated properly are not true. Because I've been going to the mayor's council members where I've been telling the truth and I've been treated like I'm a liar. I've been told that it was a reason why they were justifiable for stopping my ambulance on that day, March the 5th, 2013. And the reason was the paramedics fear for their life and I have anxiety attacks. First of all, I'm 126 pounds, handicapped man. These was 2 fully functioning paramedics that stopped an ambulance. And I have proof to the point where it happened to me again August 27th, 2013. So, I'm not going to go into that because that's through. We need to get to the truth, people. We need to stop bullshitting like this is not happening. It's happening.
You're talking about the internet really as the fulfillment of the Enlightenment project of kind of competing versions of truth in a marketplace of ideas and an understanding about the construction of knowledge and truth rather than its self-evident presentation without argument following. You can just nod. So, okay, well, let me, for a final question.
We might run out of juice.
What would be the conditions under which
y'all get
you would
where I'm going with this, and this is the truth.
Right, so this
Everything that I speak comes from the divine life of all creations, which is the truth. Love unconditionally. The feeling is in you, but you just can't activate it. And when I say can't activate it, because you don't know you.
And even though I was quite flexible here, it was Daniel Ellsberg who leads the Pentagon Papers, the secret classified history of Vietnam, in 1971, that showed that the government had not only lied us into war, but they kept lying to keep us in it, despite the fact that they knew there was no way to win. And he told me that this was a mistake, and eventually he convinced me of this, in the sense of to what do we owe our first loyalty? To law or to justice? And to submit ourselves to sort of a government that is intentionally trying to deter the political beliefs and political acts of other people merely on the basis of law, as though that were a substitute for morality or superior to morality, is a very dangerous precedent to set. Now, I'm still, this is, I think most people might be surprised by this, but fairly more trusting in the value of government institutions than Daniel Ellsberg, who since his initial work has just, he's been an extraordinary crusader and a true radical in the best way for more than a generation now. But when it comes to what's the current context? What's
Doing this shit because we about to run out of juice.
I've told the government that
Shit on that. I'm just entertaining y'all. So
where I can make a public interest defense
entertaining y'all with the
why
truth.
this was done, and allow the jury to decide if it was right or wrong in the context of both legality and morality. And the United States government responded with a letter from the Attorney General saying they promised they would not torture me.